What's up? It's the Deck Talking Devil back with you again. I think this is the first time, it is, that I've done a video for Black History Month. Okay, we know that February is acknowledged as Black History Month, and I wanted to present something along those lines to you guys today. So hopefully you take this time to embrace history. And it's not always easy, it's not always pleasant, and it's not always encouraged. You know, there are people who would rather that certain history stay buried and kind of swept underneath the rug. But that's not what we do here on this channel. So today we're gonna embrace that history, and I'm gonna share just a few things about Black history that I think are pertinent. And this will be a shorter video. I'm not gonna put a 30-45 minute video together because there'll be a couple of more videos throughout the month of February where I talk about significant figures within the Black community, not just in the Americas, but abroad in the diaspora. So the first individual that I wanted to talk about, and I felt rightfully so that we should start here, is, can you guess? Carter G. Woodson. All right, Carter G. Woodson. I'm gonna start with Carter G. Woodson, but first, go ahead, hit that like button, share this video, subscribe, turn on those notifications so the next time there's a new video, you'll be the first to know. So, Carter G. Woodson wrote a masterful work in the Miseducation of the Negro, and I have it here. Let's see. All right, so this is a pretty good book. If you've never read it, and I know that glare, I dealt with this the last time, that glare is kind of crazy on that screen. So Carter G. Woodson's book, you can get it on Amazon. It's not very expensive, but if you've never read this book, I strongly encourage you to do so. All right, and it doesn't matter what race you are, right? Read the book. It's a good book. Read the book. Now, you have to wear your big boy pants or big girl blouse or whatever, you know, and don't wear your feelings on your sleeve. History and reality are things that we have to deal with. We have to face. We can't shy away from everything that makes us a bit uncomfortable. So get the book, read it, and make sure you read it within the context of the time it was written. When you read the book, in the beginning of the book, I want to say it may even be on the copyright page. There's a kind of disclaimer where they're saying, hey, parents, we suggest that you talk to your kids before you allow them to read this book, and just let them know that at the time this book was written, some socioeconomic situations were different, and so the book must be read in the context of the time and the environment, the circumstances in which it was written, and in light of the fact that some of those variables have changed, although we can argue not very much. So that's my same suggestion to you. When you read this book, realize the time in which it was written, and just be able to be mature enough intellectually mature and emotionally mature enough to realize that at the time this book was written, it was spot on. And there are things in here that still ring true today. So why did I start with Carter G. Woodson? Carter G. Woodson is the one who he didn't start Black History Month, but what he did was like this Black History Week or Black Studies Week, African History Week kind of thing. And that was the precursor to what would become Black History Month. And he did it in the month of February. So that was a week that he had set out for Black History. And that was kind of what we view as the precursor to making the whole month of February Black History Month. So I hope that you don't recognize and try to learn and familiarize yourself with Black history only in the month of February. It should be something that you are familiar with enough to be able to contextualize some of the stuff that's being politicized in our society today. And not just in America, but all across the world. Okay? Literally, all across the world. There's a lot of things that are going on in current times that you need to have at least an intermediary understanding of the history that led to those things, that created some of the situations that we see today, that created a situation wherein the 46th president of the United States has to stand up and in an inauguration speech mention white supremacy, institutional racism, systematic racism, police brutality, disproportionate arrest of black people in 2021. Those things are still being addressed. Go back, when I say history, I'm not only talking about going back to the 50s and 60s and not even to 1865 and Emancipation Proclamation and all of that. Go back to the 90s and listen to Pac. Go back to listen to some of our poets. Go back and listen to. You can listen to lyrics in music that's being created today. Although now it's being mumbled, you may not understand it. It's like hearing somebody speak in Braille. But the music's being put out there today, and some of these same issues you'll see coming up over and over again. Dr. Michael Eric Dyson always kind of partners up with the hip-hop artist and legend Nas, and he breaks down the lyrics, that Nas uses and shows how it's depicting what African American men and women have been subjected to and are subjected to every day. All right. So when I'm saying history, I'm not just talking about way back then. You can look back decades at a time, 10, 20 years ago, and still see some of the things that led us to where we are now as a society. So I wanted to read just a quick excerpt from Dr. Carter G. Woodson's book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And to kind of give a concise overview of this book, Carter G. Woodson really dealt with education, but not necessarily in the traditional sense. He made the point that if people of color would were educating their children at home, right? Teaching them that once you go out and get this high dollar Ivy League education, you need to then bring that knowledge back to the community and use it for the benefit of the community. He talked about how those resources are being lost because as the individuals go out to get their education, they then leave the communities that are in need of that skill set. That is a very damning assessment of a problem that I think is systemic in our communities. It's and I think it's kind of instilled in us from childhood. And you could imagine why we raise our children and teach our children, okay, you got to get away. You got to get out of here. This is not the place where you want to be. Look around. You see what's going on? You don't want to be dealing with this your whole life. You got to do better than me. You got to get more than I got. And so, as well-intended we may be in our intentions and our admonitions to our children, we're instilling in them the expectation that they leave the community once they arrive. Once they get to that level where they've been educated and they're doing well for themselves, we want them out of this community. So if the educated are being pushed to leave the community, then how do you expect change within the community? Because all that's left is the uneducated or undereducated. So now, how does the rehabilitation of the community start? If we're constantly encouraging the youth to go somewhere else and get educated and then leave this place. All right. So the message has to change. We have to encourage them to get the education and be confident enough to come back to the community. And we have to then surround them with a support system to be able to utilize their skill set effectively. And here's the thing. They have to be confident enough to know that that education that they just went and got and paid $70,000 for, $100,000 for, they have to know that when they bring that skill set back to the community, that it is going to be worth their while. Now, I know that they shouldn't only think about how much money they're going to make, but they should definitely be rewarded for the labor that they endured going to get their education, the long nights studying and cramming for exams and being scrutinized and ostracized and looked down upon and doubted and broke and hungry and living on ramen noodles and hot sauce. And now they get that skill set and they know if they go somewhere else and utilize it, they'll be making six figures. But we want them to come back to the community. How they gonna make a living with the skill set? So it has to be some give and take there, meaning that those in the community has to see the value of the skill set being brought back enough to invest in it to cause it to grow and flourish. And I think that's where we get off a lot of times, is that when individuals in our communities go out and get educated and they come back to the community, they don't receive the support that they need in order to be successful as entrepreneurs or educators in our communities, and so they go elsewhere. All right, but I catch a lot of flack. Moving on, right? I catch a lot of flack because of my stance against religion and my stance against Christianity in particular. But believe me, I don't pull any punches with Islam or Judaism or any other religion. You should have saw that from the video I just did on Mormonism. But I want to read an excerpt from Carter G. Woodson's book, because some people think that, on the fringe of thinking on the subject of religion, and that's not the case. So real quick excerpt from Carter G. Woodson's book is in the section titled New Program. See that? New Program? All right. So I'm just going to short excerpts, not even a full paragraph. All right. In the church where we have much freedom and independence, we must get rid of preachers who are not prepared to help the people whom they exploit. Sounds real familiar. All right. We must be willing to get rid of preachers who are not willing to help the people whom they are exploiting. All right. The public must refuse to support men of this type. Ministers who are the creations of the old education system must be awakened, and if this is impossible, they must be dethroned. Those who keep the people in ignorance and play upon their emotions must be exiled. The people have never been taught what religion is. For most of the preachers find it easier to stimulate the superstition which develops in the unenlightened mind. Religion in such hands then becomes something with which you take advantage of weak people. Why try to enlighten the people in such matters when superstition serves just as well for exploitation? This is Carter G. Woodson, writing way back when. And he presents an argument that mirrors what I've been saying about religion. These preachers, these bishops, these priests, these rabbis, these imams, these shamans, whatever you want to call them, are taking advantage of weak people, unenlightened, uneducated people. They are exploiting them. And I'm not saying that the only people who are religious are uneducated or unenlightened people. Not what I'm saying at all. Matter of fact, you'll find a host of educated, well-educated, I'm talking lawyers, doctors, philosophers, scientists, all in religion. So that's not my point, that they're uneducated people. The point is, religion is taking advantage of the people who's there and exploiting those people. All right, it is not there as a system designed to help. It's designed to exploit. You can go back and read King Leopold's letter to the missionaries if you doubt it. You can read, it's a book called The End of White Christianity in America. All right. You can go back and read that book. Right? Because you'll get the same message. The last book, The End of White Christianity in America, is written by a white guy. All right. The other book that I referred you to is written by a black guy. All right. So from both ends of the spectrum, you're getting the same assessment of religion, how it's being used to take advantage of people. The letter from King Leopold specifically laid out how to utilize scriptures to go into Africa and to convince the people by using scriptures that they, white people, were closer to God, and since they had a relationship with God, the black people should serve them in order to get closer to God. And then he specifically tells them to use these scriptures, these specific scriptures. He lay it out for them. Use these scriptures. And then by so doing, the African will want to give you all of his wealth. in order to get salvation. Religion has always been used in this light. And so, the star of the hour that we are recognizing for Black History Month, Carter G. Woodson, in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro, he lays out the same case in this book. All right. I know, and I'm about to wrap this up in a minute, so if you hadn't liked and subscribed, turned on the notifications, go ahead and do so. Also, let me know in the comment section below if you read this book by Carter G. Woodson. All right, but I don't know if you guys are on Clubhouse, right? I get on Clubhouse sometimes, and it's funny because every time I get on Clubhouse, I just slide in a room and I'm listening or whatever, and I guess people start reading my bio, and my bio is some real quick, maybe 2-line thing that says, "Hey, I was a Christian pastor for X amount of years, and after extensive research, I no longer believe." Real short, concise. All right. And once they read it, it's like the room comes to a standstill, and now all the questions are directed to me about how could I possibly leave religion and all of this here. So I get on Clubhouse and I talk to people, and one thing that's been said to me several times on Clubhouse that I absolutely detest is that was way back then. We need to move forward and forget about the past. People who have a disdain for history, people who are not willing to stare into the purview of history because there are some uncomfortable things there. There are some skeletons that are lying there that no one wants to pull the sheets back, pull the sheets off of, or peer behind the curtain, because they may see something that indicts them. And so I keep being told that we don't need to put all of this emphasis on history, and I wonder where those people are now doing Black History Month. Because some of these individuals are black who had this perspective on history as being irrelevant. And I know that these are the same black people who you go on their Instagram page all month, they're going to be having shit up there about black history. But then in the same breath, they want to say history is irrelevant. We need to move forward. Now, I understand that you cannot get so attached to history that it inhibits your upward mobility, that it stifles growth. I understand that sometimes when these words are uttered, that's the intent. But there have been times where people come flat out and say, no, forget history. I don't care what happened. It's irrelevant. I don't want to talk about that. And to those individuals, take the words of Baba John Henrik Clark when he said that history is not everything, but it's a starting point. He said that history is a clock that people use to tell their cultural and political time of day. You hear what he's saying? The weight that he's placing on history? All right, it's a clock that people use to tell their cultural and political time of day. He said that it's a compass that they use to tell
the geographical location on the map of history. Then he said the purpose of history is to not only tell people where they've been, what they've done, and who they were, but where they are, where they must go, what they must do, and what they still must be. This is putting a lot of emphasis on history because it implies that without history, you don't know what the hell you are. So how can you move forward? Move forward from where? If you don't recognize where you are and how you got to where you are, how do you have any sense of direction to go forward? Which way is forward? Without history putting your present into context, you have no reference point for forward. And you're moving aimlessly through life without history. If you didn't take into account history, then Dr. Joy DeGrew's book, the masterpiece of post-traumatic slave syndrome, is worthless without history, because it was history that laid the groundwork for that book. Go and read Dr. Joy DeGrew's book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And she don't start with today. She starts way back when, talking about how the culture was in Africa. After one of her visits to Africa and the experience that she had there doing different conferences and talking about their perspective on time and how they deal with time and all of this stuff and greeting one another and the emphasis that they put on things that here in Western culture we dismiss out of hand. And then she started going through time, through history. And once she laid the history in front of you, she really could have just dropped the mic. Because everything current would have become clear just because she gave you the history. It's like the punchline that you can see coming. Because she went into the history, talking about the medical apartheid. Talking about the experiments that were done on black people, descendants of Africans, indigenous people, autochthonous people. You gotta have history. You have to have it. And so every time you celebrate the 4th of July, that's history. Every time you celebrate Christmas, that's history. Every time you celebrate a birthday, that's history. Constantly being reinvigorated to keep a sense of humbleness, sharpness of focus, to keep you oriented with where you are and where you've come from and where you still must go. We need history. History is important. We cannot dismiss history. And during this month of Black History, go deeper. Let me just say that, right? Don't scratch the surface, because we all know the names that's gonna come up. W.E.B. Du Bois, first African American to graduate from Harvard, PhD in Harvard, right? Matter of fact, Carter G. Woodson was the second after W.E.B. Du Bois, right? Mary McLeod Bethune. I was finna say Shirley Caesar. Who the hell was I thinking about? Harriet Tubman. Frederick Douglass. Martin Luther King. Malcolm X. You know, these same names, Fred Hampton, these same names, Fannie Lou Hamer. We know that. All right, don't stop there. Go beyond. Go deeper. All right, go before slavery. Go before slavery. And see what you'll find. See how many great figures and characters in black history you will find. Robin Walker wrote a wonderful book called When We Ruled. That's a great book to read and lay out some history for you. A lot of the contributions of black people, descendants of Africans. Another good book is Echoes from an Old Dark Land, or Star of Deep Beginnings by Dr. Charles Finch. Both of those books, he wrote both of them. Echoes from an Old Dark Land and Star of Deep Beginnings. I got all of these books so I could show you. All right. That's Star of Deep Beginnings right there by Dr. Charles Finch. All right. I know the glare on the screen kind of crazy, but that's that book. Robin Walker, When We Ruled by Robin Walker. Yeah. He got a workbook that goes with this book. All right, that's the workbook. But these books, it's a lot of them. You know, I'm not gonna go through all of them, but I just encourage you guys to go deeper. Don't go with the same people that you've been looking at every Black History Month since you was in kindergarten. You know, don't just go with the same Tupac poem, The Rose That Grew from Concrete. Don't go to I Have a Dream. Don't find the little girl who say the little poem, Hey Black Child, do you know what you can be? You can be who you want to be. Come on. We do the same shit every year, and we're not learning anything because you're only at the surface. Go back further. Okay, go back further. Really encourage you to do that. Hey, if you have some book recommendations pertaining to Black history that you think will be relevant, that you think will be beneficial to everyone else, post them in the comment section below. I said I wasn't going to do no 30, 45 minute video, and here I am. 30. See what y'all be doing? Y'all get me talking about this stuff knowing I can't shut up. And here we are, 30 minutes. So, disclaimer, disregard that shit I said at the beginning about this being a short video. Yeah, who knew? This has been the Deck Talking Devil. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hit that like button, subscribe, share, turn on those notifications so the next time there's a new video, you'll be the first to know.